It's a new year. So happy new year to all of you. I've said this as we've gone into January. It's still a new year. It's a new you. And that many of us have expectations or commitments or resolutions about health, but many don't know where to start. Where do you start? What have you started doing? Well, today in the classroom, we're lucky and fortunate to learn with our body whisperer, Dr. Jennifer Gramith, ND, and she will teach us how we can use blood work as a roadmap to health. So get your pencils and paper and get ready to write lots of notes because class is in session.
And when you need a friend, you can count on me. I'll be right here, waiting for you.
Hi, my name is Lily McDermott, and I am a certified life coach, a certified holistic cancer coach, and the host of The Classroom. If this is the first time that you've been in the classroom, please know I've been waiting for you. This is a safe place where you can go when you need a friend. It is my commitment to provide natural ways to heal, and it is my mission to make awareness, responsibility, and truth a part of our everyday life. And I hope you, my listening and viewing friend, will feel empowered to embrace a new truth and live the life of your dreams. As I said today, we're going to learn a new way to, if you're stuck and you've already, your resolutions are already gone, and you've stopped, you've given up because you don't have a plan. But what if there's a way that you can make a plan through your blood work and your labs? So, since it is our sole purpose in life to give and receive love and knowledge, I am grateful that Dr. Jennifer Gramith is here to do just that. Happy New Year, Dr. Jen.
Happy New Year. It's going to be a great year. I am so
Yeah.
excited about it and
Yes.
all the possibilities. And I think that this is the perfect time to really take a look and answer any questions, people have about, what lab should I draw? What should I know about myself? And so that's what we're going to talk about today, because this is things that are simple tests, whether they're blood labs or, hormone testing, which would be saliva and urine as well. We can do fecal testing. There's all kinds of labs that you can have drawn that you can actually order yourself. And you can go to my lab shop and order it and then do a consult with me or one of my practitioners to go over the results so that you know what is going on in the terrain of your body. This is the way that we prevent, chronic illness from creeping up in our lives. And none of us want to go to the doctor's office and, go in for um, symptom or something like that and then be told that we have heart disease or diabetes or cancer. So, be proactive. This is a way that you can be proactive. And it's not just for adults. Moms, dads, grandparents, you need to be getting your children tested as well, because we're seeing these chronic illnesses arise more and more in the younger population. So we'll talk about what types of labs would be beneficial for, testing your children as well. So I'm
This is
excited.
I'm excited too. And I'm excited also that your app came out, Dr. Jen's Gut Repair
Yep.
app. And so I'm excited that people will be able to take advantage of it all over the world. So get your app today. When you mentioned your lab shop, is that at shoprightwayhealth.com?
Mm-mm. No, I think you can go to, I sent you a link, Lillian, and you can
Okay.
post that, but it's
Okay.
labs.rupa.com, and then it's my storefronts on there, so it'll take you right to it. So you can put that link on there, and then
Okay.
it's on my Facebook, it's on my Instagram, that you can go and follow me there, and then you can access the labs through that as well.
And we will put the that lab link below the in the description, so everybody can just click on it and it'll take you there. We make it as easy as possible, and it's also in your blog, so you can just click on it where it says labs, that'll be highlighted. Just click on the word labs and it'll take you there. So many different ways that we can make things as easy as possible. So let's talk about some of these misconceptions about lab work. When you were talking about lab work, I'm thinking blood work, but you're basically saying, labs can be just about anything. So what are some of the misconceptions that we have today that are keeping us from this roadmap? Because once you have that, you can know exactly what you need to do.
Right. I think one of the biggest thing is that, if your doctor doesn't order it, you can't have it. And that's a huge misconception. Today, you can order the majority of labs yourself. So you no longer, have to wait or talk your doctor into, ordering these things. So there are some, misconceptions with that. So that's a good thing. But, also that the biggest issue that I see, Lillian, is that people don't know what to order. They don't know what these lab numbers mean. They definitely don't know what optimal numbers are because they just have the lab reference range. And so many times they could be trending towards a disease process year after year, but because they're within the lab range, doctors don't do anything. There's no intervention. There's, nothing to stop that from happening. And then all of a sudden they're out of the lab range and doctors are like, oh, you have diabetes, or oh, you have heart disease, or you have cancer. And so you don't want to get, that kind of news or that surprise because it was seen prior to that if you were going for routine labs. And so you can stop it, or like Barney Fife says, you can nip it in the bud really quickly if you know what you're looking for. And these are simple, inexpensive labs that everyone should be doing. And I when I'm doing research, like trying out a different product, or right now I'm doing peptide research, I'm testing my labs every 30 days to see how this new product is impacting the systems of my body. So I don't go into these things trying things blindly, not knowing if they're working or not, or even if they're damaging or not. And people that are taking a lot of medications, these are the labs that you want to be testing to see if they're damaging your liver, damaging your kidneys, and you want to correct that before it gets out of hand.
You're seeing, you mentioned those two misconceptions. What about the misconception of cost? Oh,
Mhm.
that's going to be too expensive. Or I love the fact that you don't have to go to a doctor. That'll save you money right there.
Right.
But, how do you get over the it's going to cost too much? And I'm sure some of these labs are expensive, but what would be a lab that might be, what is the cost that you should expect when you're ordering your own labs? What are the costs, and does that include an office visit with you?
So we do, so that's all I charge is just a consult
Okay.
fee. I let my clients have the labs at my cost.
Okay.
And so,
That's
like, for
cool.
instance, yeah, so a CBC would be like $3 or $4. A CMP, which is a complete metabolic panel, would be, around $8. And so very inexpensive. So this is stuff people can easily, most cases, pay out of pocket. And then you do the consult with the practitioner. But what's great about these labs too, it does, in your printed out version, it will give you a description of what each marker means. And you don't get that with normal blood labs, So if you're looking at a C reactive protein number and you're outside the optimal range, it's going to tell you, about that, what that causes,
Cool.
what it can cause. And so it gives you a lot of the information that the practitioner would give you too. And so it's not necessary to get a practitioner to go over the results especially if they're all within optimal, numbers. So you can just get the labs and read the report. And then if there's any questions or concerns, that's when you schedule a consult with a practitioner.
Wow, wow, wow. Okay, so when you're saying that,
Mhm.
$3 to $4 to do this test and $3 to $4 to do that test, when
Right.
I go to the labs that I've gone to, it'll be $1,000 for, some of these tests, and that's why we think that it's going to be expensive. That's very nice of you to pass on to the savings without any strings attached, is what I'm saying, what I'm
Right.
hearing you say, that they can
Yeah.
come to your lab, and of course the link is below, and it's also in the blog, so you just click on it and it'll take you to the lab. And so, or to the website that you can order the labs. This is fascinating. So
And one
how
of
do
the
you
most
know? Go ahead.
Go ahead. One of the most important labs I think people need to be checking is that cardio IQ, which is the lipoprotein fractionation, which measures the weight of the cholesterol. So, many patients are going into the hospital in cardiac arrest. They have normal standard cholesterol levels, but when you look a little bit deeper and you look at the lipoprotein, the density or the weight of the cholesterol, they have very high levels. And so that's what causes the, cardiac issues. And so that test, which is a very comprehensive test, is only $50. I mean, so what I've done
Goodness.
I know what I've done for patients is I've created these bundles. You can order all of these tests individually, but I've created like the proactive health panel for men. And what is that? So this is something I felt as a practitioner that every man should be testing yearly at least. And that is a C-reactive protein, which is one of the top inflammation markers. And there's over 15 inflammation markers we can test, but these are going to be the main ones. A CBC, which is a complete blood count, a cardio IQ, the lipoprotein fractionation test, comprehensive metabolic panel, hemoglobin A1C, which tells us about prediabetes, diabetes, insulin, fasting. That should be a standard test that every doctor is checking because prediabetes, diabetes is out of control here in the US and leading to cancer and heart disease and other chronic illnesses. And, a random fasting glucose is not going to give you the information that you need to know how your body is handling glucose. And that's why and you have tried the CGM, which gives you a ton of information. So, if you see levels out of range in the fasting insulin and your hemoglobin A1C is out of balance, then you need to be wearing that CGM for sure. A PSA free and total. We do a thyroid comprehensive panel because so many people are developing autoimmune diseases. Uh, and then, of course, a vitamin D, so, that really does impact your immune system and how the immune system reacts to pathogens and things like that. So those are the main ones that I think men, and it's a very comprehensive panel, and it's 256,
I was just going
250.
to ask you the price. Now, do people get 20% off if they do the Lily 20? Or is that
I think they get it off of the consult, but
okay?
fee, but that includes the consult fee, so
The 200
all the
and the two
256.55 includes the consult fee.
wow.
Yeah, so
That,
it's a great deal, and
did
that's
you
just,
bump your head? It's like all of a
I
sudden
know.
this is
Yeah,
really good. This is a really good thing because most people, first of all, most men don't want to go to the doctor. And I
right.
will say that we have like 40% men that watch the classroom, but we also have women that love their men. So women with if you have a man that doesn't want to do this, then you go to the doctor, at least you can do this. That's a very good deal. I mean, to get all those testing, all the testing for the men in our life. And so, so my question to you is, how do they get the labs? I live in Florida, you're in Woodstock, Georgia, and you do
Yep.
telemedicine and you can take care of people all over the world. But let's say somebody's watching from England right now or Canada, and they would like to take advantage of this. How do they maneuver the system so that they can work with you?
Yeah, so the labs, I'm only able to do the labs in the US.
Okay.
And so we can't do out of the country. I would just give them a list of the labs that they need to check, and then they could take it to their doctor where they're from. But here in the US, we're able to order, and the process is so simple. And so you go on, you order your labs, they send you the kits if you need a kit, like if it's a GI mapping or a Dutch hormone test where you're actually collecting the sample over, a day or two. They'll send you everything you need. Otherwise, you'll just print out your order and take it to LabCorp or Quest or, a local lab. They also have an option where you can have a phlebotomist come straight to your work or to your house to draw the blood for a small fee, So that's what is great about it. They make it so simple. And the lab that I use is Rupa Labs. It's the same one Dr. Mark Hyman uses and a lot of functional practitioners. But and you have access to all kinds. Now, I did not put in my store all of the labs that a person can get. I just created the most common labs and bundles that people would need. So like the Dutch complete test, which is looking at your hormones and your adrenals. So many people have adrenal issues, hormone issues. We live in such a toxic soup. No wonder, we're seeing more and more disease in younger kids. And if you have like a young daughter having terrible menstrual cycles, this is a great test to do to let us know what is exactly going on in her body and how to support her so that she doesn't suffer, month after month, year after year with migraines, PCOS, and then later develop endometriosis and cancer. I mean, these are things that need to be corrected very quickly and is much easier to correct in the early stages.
Now,
And so
The Dutch test is kind of an expensive test. Are
that's
they
just
giving it to
it.
you? Are they going to give it to you at cost? I mean, how does that work?
They give it to me. Yeah, it's not that, I mean, it's still $400 for the
Okay.
Dutch test.
Does that
Um,
include a consult or no?
that includes your
It
consult.
That's great. That's great because I know
Yeah,
these tests can be expensive. And I would say that whenever we do something like that, it's a good preventative tool too. Because if you
right.
see whatever markers they have or that it doesn't mean that they have it, it just means that they can now use this as a like, what do I need to prevent now? What do I need to do to make sure this doesn't progress? So
Yeah.
when somebody does one of these, okay, let's say I'm listening to you today and I'm like, okay, I've got some symptoms, but I don't quite know what labs to choose. Is there someone that can guide them in choosing the labs for them?
Yeah, so that would be if they're not sure once they read, each lab and what it's for. It gives a good description on, if you're having inflammation or if you feel like your, hormones are out of balance, these are the best test.
Hmm.
But if they're still unsure and they just want to make sure that they get the right test for the symptoms that they're having, they can call into the office and talk to one of our practitioners, and we'll be glad to, give our recommendations just by listening to the symptoms that they're having. And so, yeah, you can narrow it down to just a few tests, or you can do a, big bundle of testing. You have that option. So, our main goal is that we are educating people how to take care of themselves and to not live in the dark about what's going on to their body. We want no more surprises. We want people to have the option and opportunity to make better decisions. And what's great about this is not just that we're running the labs and we're saying, here's your labs, these are the things out of balance and leaving it at that. We actually take that information and then we put together a protocol for you based upon that information. And that can include and will include dietary recommendations. So I can create a diet for you based from your labs to support the liver function if your liver enzymes are out of whack, to help to lower your risk for diabetes. And so you can follow this diet plan, and it comes with a menu and everything, and then retest in 30 to 60 days and see how the difference it made just by shifting a few things in your diet, how it impacted your blood labs or your other labs. And
Okay.
so that's motivating. It really is, because it gives the person back control. And so if I see, that you have infection, because when you do check the neutrophils and basophils, that tells me about allergies and, how you're reacting to certain foods or your environment. I can look at lymphocytes to see if you have a high viral load, bacterial loads, parasites. You can see all that in this lab. So we know exactly what is, going on with you. Then we can recommend, as a practitioner, I can say, why don't you try this antimicrobial and let's see how it impacts that particular thing. And so it's just a no-brainer, for people who really desire to have optimal health. This is the way to do it. You can't, because we live in a sea of toxins, it's something that is really necessary, where it was, maybe more a luxury in the past. People didn't worry about it because, they didn't have a whole lot of symptoms. They had symptoms, but it was enough they could ignore it. But the disease process today and how it progresses is totally different than it was, 10, 20 years ago. You just see such a quicker progression of chronic illness. And we're seeing not just one chronic illness developing in a body, we're seeing two, three, and sometimes four. So this is the time to take control of our health.
Yes. And so I heard you say that once you start your protocols, retest 30 to 60 days, but you
Right.
also said that you should at least get once a year your labs. Is that like if somebody's not having symptoms or and they just want to do a quick test, see how they're doing, is that a different kind of testing protocol or if somebody
Yeah.
actually has a condition, how long will it take? Does it take 30 to 60 days um, to see a change, or should you wait a little bit longer just to make sure that,
Yeah, it would
hormones
depend.
are, yeah, thyroid.
It would depend on the condition. So yeah, so the labs that I have created, like the peak performance health labs for men, the proactive health, that's a huge panel. And that should be done once a year just to make sure that your main markers are all in optimal range. And if they are not, if let's say you have that run and you haven't had anything like that done in the past, so we do that and we find that you have this and this and this, let's say the cardio IQ test, which is, and the majority of the people that we run that on is high. And that means you got too much bad cholesterol and not enough good cholesterol, and you're building, blockage in the body. It's a progression. Then you would retest that. You don't necessarily have to do that whole bundle again until the next year. So we would not repeat that 200 and some dollar test. We would only repeat the lab numbers that were out of optimal range. And so it could be, instead of 200, it could be, $5 or $10 test,
Okay.
depending on
Yeah.
what was out of balance. So
Yeah.
Um, and so those types of labs that are in those proactive for the men, women, and kids, they're going to, um, most of those will see a change in 30 days. Now, a hormone test may take 3 months before you start to see
Mhm.
adequate change. So it may
Yeah.
be every 3 months, but your practitioner, we will tell you when you need to retest. And we'll go
Mhm.
ahead and, reorder that test and send you all of that stuff so that you can prepare for that when we do your consult so it's not forgotten and, people don't slip through the cracks.
What
Mhm.
about other issues like magnesium, or because you did say D, but do you test for C levels or zinc levels? Are there like
So
nutrient levels?
we have a whole vitamin mineral marker panel that you can
Nice.
run for people who even just want to, you're taking all these supplements. Am I absorbing them?
Yes.
And so we can check all of that for sure. And that's a good one to check. Hair analysis, we can do hair analysis testing as well. That's a great way to see how you're absorbing your vitamins and minerals. One of my favorite tests now to look at is GI mapping. So that's a fecal test that you do, and that really helps you to understand the microbiome, which is where your immune system lies and what you're missing and how your infections and things that are in the gut can be treated and what they're resistant to. So, I may recommend a probiotic that is your gut microbiome is resistant to. So that would do you absolutely no good. So it'll actually tell you you have these types of bacterias
Wow.
infections, and these are the probiotics that will remedy that. And it's based upon your stool test assessment. And so that's a great way to really, instead of just playing around with trying this one and this one and this one, see which one actually is going to work with your strains or your bacteria. Mhm.
Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing to have that kind of detail labs that you can order yourself. Because
Right.
I've gone to a doctor in the past just to see what my magnesium levels were, or what my zinc levels were, and they're like, we don't test for that.
Yeah.
We don't do that." And it took me out of my home to visit the doctor, wait in the lobby, sit with the doctor, and then have the doctor look at me like I have three heads and not understand that I take supplements. I try to eat as optimally as possible. You would know that this holiday season, because when you go up north and you're at the you are at the mercy of the restaurants that are there. I came
Right.
home saying, I need greens. I need greens. I had a lot of salads, but I didn't have
Yeah.
not a lot of broccoli. I don't know. There's a shortage of raw broccoli up north or something. Don't try to start any rumors, but
Right.
it just seems like sometimes you just, you want to eat as optimally as possible, but your circumstances, whether it's a holiday, you're at a gathering or whatever, but you want to see how your body is doing, how it's
Right.
absorbing, because there's liposomal vitamins versus the regular, or and when I tell you that I take 10,000 about 10,000 milligrams of vitamin C, is 70% of it being washed away? I mean, what is it? Is it better for me to spend my money and getting IV, vitamin C IVs? Is that some of the detail that you would consult with somebody to say, okay, listen, what you're doing right now is not helping you. Save yourself
Right.
some money, because those supplements
Right.
can be
But
expensive.
yeah, yeah. There's certain supplements that are more on the synthetic side and you're not getting any absorption and they're creating more toxicity in the body than they are benefit. And so you would be able to, test that. So anything that you're taking on a regular basis, most definitely you want to see what your tissue levels are in the body. And, just with, like you mentioned, magnesium, but, a lot of deficiency that I see is vitamin B and especially B6. And, People think, well, what does that matter? Well, that's what causes, neuropathy. It causes depression, and just
Really?
small deficiencies, can cause these types of symptoms.
B as in
It can
boy. B as in boy.
yeah, B as in boy. Yeah, exactly. Memory problems from a B6 deficiency. The cracks, a lot of times you'll see this in a lot of kids, but adults too, cracks in the corners of their mouth or tongue, appears to be swollen and it's red and kind of smooth. And so those are all, symptoms of just a B6 deficiency, which can lead to, other like anemia and things like that. So it's these critical nutrients. You need to know what your levels, are, especially again, you need to have a baseline, but then when you start supplementing, you definitely want to know if the supplements you're taking are working. And so a lot of people will just take a bunch of supplements and not really know if they're working or not. And they can tell with their symptoms, but how much do they need? What should that dose be? We don't want it to go too high. Like vitamin D, when you start taking high doses of vitamin C and then you don't titrate that down based upon your labs, you can get an overdose, which will cause calcium to build up in your arteries, and that can lead to heart disease. It can cause muscle weakness. So, all of a sudden your legs feel like they weigh 100 pounds each, and you're wondering what is going on, and that can put you in cardiac arrest. And so just by taking too much vitamin D. So you do need to know, what these levels are, and get, educated on what each lab means and how it affects your body. And more importantly, you need to know what optimal levels are versus lab range, because the lab ranges are based upon the population. 70% of the population has 1 to 4 chronic illnesses. So you don't want to be the average. You want to be optimal. And so a functional doctor is going to look at your labs totally different than a, traditional allopathic doctor who, cannot really treat you until you're out of the standardized lab range, because insurance won't pay for, preventative medicine. And so as a functional doctor, we'll say, hey, you're moving towards diabetes. You may not be diabetic yet, but pre-diabetes causes, heart disease, cancer. Your body's in a state of inflammation. It causes neuroinflammation. Your brains are on fire, things like that. These cause terrible symptoms and decrease your quality of life. And so I find it, just amazing. Like I said, I'm doing research right now on myself with peptide therapy. And so I'm testing my blood every 30 days to see how, is it really regenerative? Is it actually helping my cholesterol numbers? Is it, what exactly is going on in the body? And because I don't recommend anything unless I test it out myself.
What have you seen from peptide therapy? Because I have been reporting on peptide therapy, not necessarily trying it, but just getting information, sharing information. But what is your take on peptide, therapy, at this point with what you've taken and your labs?
Right. So and this is microdosing peptide therapy, and this is bioidentical peptide. So it's what your body produces. This is not, Ozempic, which is high dose peptide therapy, things like that, that can be very damaging. People will have a lot
Yeah,
of
it can cause
symptoms.
cancer
And
too.
so, yeah, it can do, a lot of damage. But so peptides, are proteins, they're signaling hormones. They're absolutely critical for your new body to rejuvenate itself. So a lot of functional practitioners are using peptide therapy,
Mhm.
stem cell therapy, things like that in their practice and making a major difference in, and they're actually even treating, I have some doctor friends who are using peptide therapies with cancer patients.
Wow.
Um,
What kinds of
so
cancer? What kinds of cancer?
different kinds. Yeah, different kinds of cancer. Um, I think what you're referring to as far as the causing cancer was in that study with Ozempic, and they were giving these rats 100 times more than they would give the human at the max dose. So you're giving a tiny rat 100 times more than you're giving a human. If you give anything like that, if you give insulin, too much insulin, it can kill you.
Yeah.
Insulin is a natural hormone our body produces. That's, a type of, same type of, therapy. But, um, so that test, I didn't like it,
Yeah.
because of the way that they did that. But, yeah, so microdosing these things, seem to show very promising, so I'm still in the midst of the research, so I'm not going to say too much about it, but I have looked at, both sides, and I definitely am not for macro dosing, people on hormones, because I'm not for that with any kind of hormone. We don't give massive amounts of estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, you would go nutso. Anybody who's ever been overdosed in any of those know what I'm talking about, so you always, as a functional practitioner, you want to give the very minimum to be functional, that the person needs, not overdose these
I'm
patients.
telling you, be very, very careful when it
Yeah.
comes to, even if it's bioidentical hormones, be very, very careful. I have to share, I
Yeah,
don't know if
because
I,
yes,
I don't know if I shared this story with you,
yeah.
or any of you out there, but I tried, I was doing bioidentical hormones a while ago, and their practitioner changed, and a doctor was taking over, and he was new at it. And so he followed the guidelines that I was going through before. But when you take, a hormone, a bioidentical hormone, and you check the blood, and the blood is a certain way, you don't give the same dose. And let me tell you, my testosterone got up to 450 or something like that. And I looked at him and I said, "Are you trying to make me grow a penis? I mean, what in the world are you doing?" It's like,
Exactly.
it's like you've got to be careful. Someone as careful as I am,
Yeah.
this happened to me. It could happen to anybody. The moment you say this could never happen to me, you're setting yourself up because, the world loves to, or the, nature loves to just kind of catch you off guard. But I remember going through that. My skin, I didn't understand what was going
Exactly. Yeah,
on. My
exactly.
skin, texture of my skin changed. I mean, fortunately, I was still a female.
Yeah.
There was it's like, okay, this is way before you could choose your sex back then. So this is a while ago. So I know better now. But at the
Right.
time, that was what came out of me. It's like, what are you trying to do? And he looked at me and he kind of smiled and he said, "I'm so sorry. I am
Yeah.
just so new at this." And I'm like, "Yeah, I don't want to be anybody's guinea pig. I don't. I don't." And so that was
And
the last time I ever did
fact
that.
that you tested, that's one thing that I see that people are not doing enough. You start on these bioidentical hormones,
Yes.
they're going in, they get their initial labs, but then they don't do the follow-up. And
Yes.
so they just keep giving them the same dose,
Yeah.
especially when you're getting the pellets inserted. Once they're inserted, you can't get them out. Your body
Yep.
has to absorb them. And so there's nothing you can do about all that excess testosterone, just wait it out.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's difficult. Yeah.
Yeah. You quoted Barney Fife. I'm gonna
Yeah.
quote Porky Pig. That's all, folks. When you get that done, you
Yeah.
are done. I mean, it's like it's in you for that time. So if you're considering bioidentical hormones, make sure that you're going to someone who understands that before you do any more like follow-up appointments, that you do the labs, which I did, but
Mm-hmm.
I guess they weren't read. And so as a result, it was difficult for me to go through life with that much testosterone. I'm a girly girl.
Yeah.
I
I'm
don't
sure it was
want a
difficult
penis.
for Robert too.
Yeah. What do you mean you don't want beans?
Exactly.
Anyway, I
Oh, that's
digress. Okay,
funny. Yeah.
so I'm
That's
just going to take a moment to talk about our wonderful sponsor, Dr. Jennifer Gramith. If you look behind me here, you will see how to contact her. For those of you who are, realizing what I don't need to go to a doctor to prescribe these labs, you have an option. That misconception that it's expensive to be healthy or to do the prevention. It's expensive to eat organic. Think again. It is more expensive. It's funny how people always find the money to go to the doctor, or go to the ER, but they don't find the money to do prevention. So if anything can change for you to thrive in 2025, it would be for you to make a decision that you want to prevent. And so by doing so, it's like creating a plan of how are you going to do this? And what better way to work with Dr. Jen and do some lab work. Right there is Rightway Health and Wellness.com. And below you can find the link that we've been discussing. And so go to whenyouneedafriend.com and you can just find the blog if you don't have the blog. While you're there, please subscribe so that you can get your own blog sent to you every Sunday at 4:44. That's for the number 4. When I was going through my transformation and becoming a coach and all of that, the number 4 meant love. And so I send it to you at 4:44 so that you feel the love that the blog was written and it's received. So please subscribe, like and follow me on all social media. And also check out my Shop Now bag because I do have a Shop Now bag. These are Lilly approved products. And and then you can also become um, um, a an enrolled student in the classroom. All of a sudden, I'm like, what? What? I guess I'm still stuck on the penis thing. But so an enrolled student in the classroom, and you can donate. Help grow the classroom for 2025. And if it's $1 or $1,000 a month, a one-time donation, heck, just sharing this video is a way that you can help the classroom grow. Putting emojis and doing the thumbs up. We're really excited to see what's going to happen with this new administration and how we will be able to speak truths that we haven't been able to speak before. So I'm looking forward. I'm looking forward for 2025 to be a wonderful year. But the only way I can say this to you is that if you are healthy, you have 1,000 dreams. But when you are sick, and that's a proverb, when you are sick, you have one dream, which is to get better. But why don't let yourself get to that point where you're only one dream? And so I want to encourage you to help the classroom grow and give generously in whatever way you can, whether it's with your time, your talent, your treasure, all of it is appreciated. As I said today, we have our body whisperer, our Swiss Army knife of naturopathic medicine, Dr. Jennifer Gramith, and she's done everything she can to put her name, her thumbprint in all her products that she has. You can go to shoprightwayhealth.com. You can contact them at 404-474-2100. They're in Woodstock, Georgia. So if you want to go to Georgia, you can just go there, visit, or you can, from anywhere around the world, dial up and schedule a telemedicine appointment with her or her practitioners. I'm so grateful to you, Dr. Jen, for supporting the classroom and for everything that you do to make it easy for us to choose health. So thank you.
Thank you. It's my pleasure. I enjoy it. Yeah.
I love it. Every time you come on, you come up with a better, because I know that your platform, your desire since I've met you is to educate. Is
Mhm.
to educate. And of course, that's my desire too. And I'm so grateful that we both come together to do this. So there are other things that you do, and we've talked about it before, with the lymphatic drainage. Let's talk about that. I don't want to, I mean, is there anything else that you want to talk about when it comes to lab work? Maybe some of the labs that you are doing that maybe most people think that you are going to need a doctor's appointment. What else would you like to add about the lab work
I
before we
mean,
move on?
yeah, there's most any lab. I mean, we can run cancer panels, and I definitely do suggest that if you have a family history of cancer, if you've had cancer in the past, you need to be checking those panels. And, so this is a way that, some people will fall through the cracks. And if you know what to test for yourself, you're not going to be that one. You're not going to fall through the cracks. And not get the labs or the things that you need, but breast cancer panels, prostate cancer, we look at all of those things. You can almost anything that you can think of is going to be a lab that we can order for you, or you can order for yourself. Like I said, I had the men's proactive health panel, the women's proactive health panel. We have, different things for just disease, like if you have been diagnosed with cardiovascular disease, high blood pressure, then there's a panel for you as well. Diabetes,
What
things like
about
that.
autoimmune diseases? Like I've got some friends that have
Autoimmune, yeah,
autoimmune diseases.
autoimmune,
So what would
Lyme
that
disease.
what would an
Mhm.
autoimmune test tell me as a roadmap to health?
Yeah, it would tell you if you actually had autoimmune disease.
Okay.
It would tell you what your inflammation markers are, and then we would create a protocol, for you. Same thing with Lyme, if you have Lyme disease. And when you're doing protocols for the Lyme, we would want to check these, um, the co-infections as well. And so all of that's on there. So yeah, I mean, whether it's, Hashimoto's thyroiditis, cancer, any chronic illness, autoimmune illness,
You even
you
talked about
can
hair
test
testing, hair analysis. That's really good.
hair
But with hair
analysis. Is
analysis, that
great.
takes a little bit of time. If you color your roots, if you color your hair, share a little bit about that and what do you learn
Yeah.
with hair analysis?
So hair analysis, it really tells you about your absorption. If you're absorbing your vitamins, minerals, well, it looks for heavy metal toxicity. So a lot of the toxins that we have been exposed to can show up in the hair analysis. However, you're exactly right. When you dye your hair or color your hair, you have to let it grow out. And when we take the sample, even though we're just taking small amounts, it has to be close to the scalp. You can't take a sample at the end of the hair. You're not going to get a good reading. And so it's not something like, we're not going to gap up your hair or anything like that. We usually take it underneath and closest, to the scalp. And you weigh it, get enough to weigh it. But it does tell you a lot. I've done hair analysis for years. I love it. I think it's very helpful. Unfortunately, some of the blood tests that we do when we're measuring like hormones and, toxicities, it's not very accurate because it's what's circulating in the blood and it's not really showing you what is absorbed into the tissue. And these types of nutrients, they don't benefit you unless it gets absorbed into the tissue. And so, that's why you really need the saliva, the urine, and the, hair analysis to confirm that. Because you can have high levels in the blood and think, oh, I have, high level of B vitamins in the blood, but you're anemic, because it's not being absorbed into the cell.
Interesting.
And that
Tell
could
us,
cause,
yeah.
hemochromatosis. So then you look at ferritin levels and, so if it's not being absorbed, calcium, if it's not being absorbed into the bone, it's going to be high levels in the blood, which can cause the calcium, to build up into the arteries and cause blockage.
Wow.
So, yeah, I mean, it's, it shouldn't be there. It should be, when you're in optimal, it should be in the tissue that it's designed to treat. So magnesium has so many processes, so many systems rely on magnesium. Most people are deficient in magnesium. So a lot of times it's like vitamin D. Most people are deficient in vitamin D. So we do supplement a lot with that. But because you can get excess, then with magnesium, you get excess magnesium, you get diarrhea.
Yeah.
That's not so much with vitamin D. And so you get too much vitamin D, it will like us cause you the muscle fatigue, and then, it can cause heart attack if you goes untreated.
Okay, so let's expand a little bit more on the vitamin D because you've mentioned that a couple times, and I wanted to ask, okay, first of all, there are different kinds of vitamin D. There's
Right.
the oil base, and then
Mhm.
there's the I take a raw vegan vitamin D powder, Vitamin of Life, or I'm not endorsing them or anything like that,
Right.
But it's what I understand, the fat soluble one is the one that can cause problems, right? I mean, can you explain a little bit more about that?
It depends, it depends on the person. And so I use like one from Biotics,
Okay.
and Biotics Research has got several good ones. I use it with K2, and it works really well. And so it's just, depends on the delivery source. So it
Hmm.
actually is a uptake if it's in a like liposomal, it's taken up into the cell faster
Okay.
than if it's not. And so, but you just need to measure. I mean, on the average American, vitamin D levels about 20, 30. It needs to be in the 80s is optimal. And you don't want it to be over 100. So you've got this sweet little spot. If I test a person and their levels are 60 to 80, 85, I'm happy, with that, and I will keep them at that same level. But because we do therapeutic dosing of vitamin D for people compromised. But we only do that typically for a short time. So if you're taking a high dose vitamin D, it may be for 30 days, and then we put you on the maintenance dose.
Okay.
But, because of COVID and things like that, people were scrambling, taking much higher doses for much longer and not getting tested and creating more issues for themselves.
I want to expand a little bit on the magnesium as well, because we've had Dr. Levy and Dr. Lee Cowden come on the show and say that people that have cardiac arrhythmias, cardiac issues, heart attacks, are 85% of the people that do have this are magnesium deficiency, magnesium deficient. So with that in mind, what are some of the magnesiums that would be best to take?
Well, there's a lot of new formulations of magnesium that have three different types of magnesiums to kind of cover the whole spectrum, and I like those. But it depends, on what you're trying to do. A lot of people will take magnesium to help with bowel health and to make sure that they're eliminating, because when you're deficient, it can definitely cause constipation.
Mhm.
And so that's natural vitality calm is really good for that. And then, but I like the magnesium from there's one from Designs for Health and I think Biotics that has three different types of magnesium.
Yeah.
So it'll cover the health, the magnesium for the cardiovascular system, and magnesium deficiency and that link to the cardiovascular, disease is because it takes magnesium, vitamin D to uptake calcium. And so you have to have adequate amounts of all of those to get absorption where it needs to be in the body. And just a slight deviation from that can create problems in your body. So, and people aren't eating foods high in
Hmm.
magnesium. They're not eating enough greens. They don't eat one thing that's high and I can't tolerate much of is like brown rice. And I'll do the sprouted, brown rice. But it's really high in magnesium too. And so, that's what's helpful about this information as we start to see what your lab ranges are. We can tell you what you need to eat more of. You don't always have to take a supplement for it. Ideally, we want you to get it in your diet. But because our food source is so depleted, is why people are having to supplement these days. And then we are creatures of habit. We eat the same thing. We don't eat a variety of foods, which is very necessary.
Yes. Yes, I understand that. And it's so I would before we go, I'd love to hear now that you've started this program with bundling labs and all of that with Rupa Labs, are there any situations that you can share that you were stunned or that you've been able to make a difference? Because I know that ultimately that's what you want to do. A story from someone who chose their labs, took the labs, got your feedback, and what happened?
Yeah. So yeah, I've had many cases. And what's been surprising to me is how many people have a severely high level on the cardio IQ test of the, the lipoproteins. And that's a scary situation. I've even been testing younger teenagers, things like that. I'm seeing the same patterns as I'm seeing in their parents, and that's
That's
shocking.
sad.
So, to me, knowing that and then giving them the tools that they need to change, what I have seen is, come back 30 days later and their, points have dropped 30 points. They're feeling better. Their symptoms have, dissipated. They're now gaining back in energy. I have a lot of adrenal issues with patients, and you're seeing more and more of that. There's chronic fatigue, and they don't know why, and they're trying to, to eat clean, eat healthy. Typically, once they come here, they've tried a lot of different things, and it just is not working. But that's when we really take a deep dive into their gut health, their lymphatic system. That's a huge issue. The majority of the people that we see here have a very compromised, very thick, very congested lymphatic system, which is the system that carries your immune system. So if it's thick and congealed, congested, your immune response to these pathogens, these viruses, bacteria, things that are very inhibited. And so it's a very slow reaction, and when it needs to be quick and almost instantaneous.
And you have trained just about every certified lymphedema therapist in
Yeah.
that I know, at least in the world, all over the world. So I'm sure that if anybody wants to do the lymphatic therapies, they can go to your website at Rightway Health and Wellness and look for someone who has been trained by you. You have a
Yes, we have a directory. Yeah, for
You have a
sure.
directory. So that's just another thing that you can do for 2025 to thrive. So thank you so much, Dr. Jen. This is the
Thank you.
fastest 55 minutes ever.
I know
Actually, I think
it.
we've got a little
Yeah.
over that. But anyway, I'm so grateful to you. Thank you so much for this information. And now it's our turn. It's your turn. If you're listening today, whether it's on podcasts or you're watching on BitChute or Facebook or YouTube, just know that there's a reason why you're listening. Just reach out to Dr. Jen at 404-474-2100. You can reach out and check out their website, and it's now time for you to make a decision. You've been informed. It's all of your choice. So thank you so much, Dr. Jen, for everything that you do.
Thank you. My pleasure.
And please remember, we'll be right here waiting for you worldwide at whenyounneedafriend.com. This is Lillian McDermott and Dr. Jennifer Gramith wishing you love, peace, joy, and unexpected abundance. Make it the best day ever. Good job. Good
Best
job.
year ever.
Best year ever, too. Yes.
The opinions and advice expressed on the Lillian McDermott radio show are intended for the individual callers and guests on the program and are presented to our wider audience solely for general educational purposes. Please act responsibly and consult personally with your own medical, psychological, or nutritional expert before taking any steps to improve your life.